Hey everybody, Steven here, Gear Stuff and Things, back for another video, and this one's going to be a little different. It's not something I haven't done before on the channel, but it's been a long time since I've done it. It was probably mid-pandemic when I was doing more mixing here on the channel. But due to my lovely arrangement with the fine folks at Zounds, I was able to borrow a handful of microphones, as well as some preamps, to essentially do a little drum video for you, because I just wanted to change it up and do something different. So we're going to head into the DAW and we're going to start mixing. I'm going to try to do it using as few plugins as possible, and I'll be featuring mostly the Black Salt Audio stuff. They're not a sponsor, but I really like their stuff, and it makes things like this pretty easy and quick, especially if you're not looking to get a perfect drum mix that's 100% ready, but if you just wanted to do something quick and dirty to really get something going so someone else could continue tracking to drums that just sound pretty solid. So let's head into the DAW and we're going to start putting it all together. All right, so we're back and we are about to get in to the mixing. We're going to head into DAW land now. We're using Logic. And as I mentioned, we're keeping it easy. We're going to use just a few plugins here and there. So in just a moment, we're going to head on into the DAW and start messing with it. So as you see here on the screen, now that I'm down in the corner, so I'll point up that way, I think you should be able to see what I'm doing. And you'll see my tiny little face down there in the corner. Very cool. Either way, let's get into it. So we've got a kick in, we've got a kick out. We have a sample layer for the kick. We've got a snare. We've got a sample layer for the snare. We got a floor tom. We got a rack tom. We got hi-hats. We got overheads, and we've got rooms. All the basic stuff you would expect when handling a drum mix. And let's just get going with it. So we're going to start with our kick in, and we're going to solo that jam. Sounding pretty decent already. This is the Lewitt 640 REX mic. It's a microphone that has both a dynamic as well as a condenser diaphragm. It's got two separate independent outs that you can use to blend it together to really make a nice tight kick sound. So let's go ahead and start applying some plugins. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we are using Black Salt Audio stuff. We're going to start with Silencer, which is a nice gate plugin. And it's got these little icons up here, as you can see, one of which is for kick. So we're going to select that one, and we're going to let this jam roll, and we're going to start adjusting. It's already doing a pretty great job. Let's hear it without. And with. I think we're doing okay. So with that in mind, we're going to start EQing this jam. And for that, we're going to use Telos, which is another lovely plugin from the fine folks over at Black Salt Audio. This plugin really allows you to just dial in a great sound very quickly. As you can see, it also has very specific drum items there. One of which being the kick. So that's what we're going to start with, because we're working on the kick. Imagine that. Anyway, let's start crafting. It's a nice punch. Let's add some sub. Nice. Let's see what we got. Some mids here. We're really popping through now. Now we got tight and smooth, and this just kind of rounds some things off and really makes things a little nicer. So let's see what we got here. Smooth. And what I've found here, just because these are kind of, mystery knobs to some degree, we know what they do, but, there's some magic happening behind the doors. So I just try to crank them and see what we get at full blast. I feel like that sounds great. We're going to add a little compression. Nice. It's a nice nice clicky, punchy kick we got going on here. Add a little drive. I like saturation on the kick. And we could clip it if we wanted to. I don't find a need for that, but if you wanted to clip it, you could. But it was that easy, friends. We've got ourselves a nice internal kick sound. Let's move on to the external. So we've got our out. This one's going to be a little more subby. So we're going to start with silencer, of course. We want to cut all that excess out. And similarly, we're going to go with telos. Now, for the internal, I tend to mix that and EQ it with the external. I tend to mix it with the internal because I feel like it yields a better result. So we got that. I'm going to start adding some lows. Fair enough. Now, it's not magical or breaking the mold or anything. It's just a great, solid drum sound. So we've got those. Let's make our way into snare land. For the snare, we used a traditional Shure 57. And it sounds a little bit like this. It's ringy. It's got a lot of excess noise. It's a 57 on a snare. If you've ever mixed drums and worked with a 57 on a snare, you know. So we're going to go into silencer yet again. You're going to see me doing a lot of things that are repetitive because you don't need a lot to mix drums really well using these plugins. And again, not a sponsor or anything. I just saw someone else use them and I thought they were pretty brilliant and I'm real into it. So we've got snare top, snare bottom. In this instance, we're not mixing the snare bottom. I deleted that because it sounded horrible. There was something wrong with the microphone or cable, and it was just breaking up. So we went ahead and got rid of that. Either way, let's start messing with our snare. And we've got it isolated pretty well. Let's hear it without. Hear it with. Pretty cleaned up. Let's start EQing this jam. Let's bring in telos and get ourselves a nice snare sound. Now we're dealing with snare top, so you'll see there's bottom and top. Let's go ahead and bring in the top. I like to start with the mids in the snare because I feel like that's kind of where it hangs the most. There's a bit of body there. We're going to add some high for attack, and I'm going to add some low to give it some body. We're going to do a little bit of post EQing with this one too, but not a ton. So let's keep dialing it in. So it's really starting to pop through now. It doesn't sound amazing, but we've got some other tricks up our sleeve. So we're going to go from there, and I'm going to pull up one other plugin, which you're not going to see me use too frequently throughout this, but it's going to be here. I'm going to bring up the SSL channel. I've got a couple of presets that I've saved for snare, and this is just to kind of get a little bit of that thick happening, and I'll show you what I did. But snare boost thick, this is a preset I've saved. So you'll see here, we're adding a bit at 200. I've got a little bit going on here, so let's hear that. And we're gonna take some of this 8K out because it's a little harsh. We're gonna start adjusting it too to blend it in. That's solid. And down here was where the real magic is happening. So we're going to get this back to 0, and we're going to start adding some heft. That gives the snare some weight. It's not just a pop coming through. It's got some body. It's got some weight. On its own, not the most amazing sounding thing, but in the context, it's going to be quite nice. So that's our snare. And now that we've got that, let's go ahead and bring in the samples just to layer things up and really start getting the kick snare exchange where it should be. So I'm going to unmute the kick sample and let you hear that on its own. It's a pretty massive sounding sample. It's going to do a lot of work for our kick situation. So I'm just going to pull this down. I'm going to pull all of these all the way down. We're going to start doing a little bit of a blend here. So I'm going to solo these out. All right, let's start blending in our sample. Nice. Let's do the same thing with the snare. This is our snare sample. You'll hear that it's got more of the snare wire in it, and since we removed the original snare bottom mic because it was just not working well, and it was kind of, the cable wasn't doing a great job, and it was getting a lot of distortion, and it was coming in and out. It just was a problem with the whole arrangement we had for the bottom of the snare. So I got rid of that, but by adding this sample that has a little bit more of the snare wire in its tone, we're getting some of that back. So similarly, we're going to take our snare, and we're going to have our kick already in the mix here, and we are going to start blending things in. So I'm going to go back. All right, and we're going to start bringing in that sample. Got a tiny bit more of that. Now we got something going on. So we've got our snare, we've got our kick. Let's head into toms. I'm going to find a section here where we got some toms isolated. Let's get rid of this marker. And we got some toms over here, it looks like, that we can start isolating. So we're going to start with our floor tom. We're also going to go ahead and just pan it as it falls. Typically, if you're behind the drum kit, floor tom's going to be to your right. So we're going to pan it to our right. I'm not doing completely hard, but just shy of it. We'll go ahead and pre-pan the rack tom to be about 33. I once heard someone describe mixing as a way to apply the rule of thirds to your ear. And I don't know how accurate that is, but I do enjoy doing it when I've got something that doesn't have to be hard panned. I tend to go 33 one direction or the other. Sounds stupid, I know, but it's just a thing I do. So we're going to unsolo these, and we're going to solo this tom, and let's hear what we have. So not a terrible source tone. Let's do our usual bit here. We're going to take silencer. We're going to select our tom option here. And with this, I'm going to add a little bit of this length because I want the tom to have a bit of sustain. So we'll just add a tiny little bit. All right, so we've got that cleared out pretty well. We're going to bring up old Telos again. We're going to go with floor tom. Now, I have a few presets in here, and just for the purposes of not dialing everything in. I'll explain to you what I've done, but I've got a few things saved here. So I've got floor tom, rack tom, room, this whole thing. We're going to go with the floor tom saver I've had, and this is the sound I have for floor toms, and we can make some tweaks because it wasn't made using this particular floor tom. We don't want to add too much mid because you start to get that basketball sounding thing happening. It's just pretty unpleasant. All right. So we got something. And that sounded pretty solid. Again, on its own, not the most amazing sounding thing. In the context of the mix, it's going to do us. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and move on to our rack tom. We need silencer again. Now this one's going to be a little more tricky because the hits weren't as hard. And go ahead and add a little sustain to it, just so it hangs out a bit, clear it out a little bit more. And we've got ourselves a nice isolated tom. Let's get in here with Telos and start doing our thing. So we've got floor tom, rack tom. We're going with the rack tom. I do have a preset I saved for the rack tom, and we'll make some tweaks to it because it wasn't made using this one, but it should get us in the ballpark. Honestly, pretty okay. So let's hear them together. Sounded pretty good. So let's go ahead and bring everything in that we've already messed with just to hear where we're at. All right, so that's the drums. Those are the shells. Now we're going to move on to our cymbals. All right, and now we're going to start messing with our overheads, hi-hats, and rooms. So let's start with our hi-hats first. So let's hear those. We're going to get a little section where they're a little busier. And we'll bring them into the mix accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and pan those. We're going to pan those a little further hard to the left. And we'll start bringing them in. Actually, let's go ahead and mute everything else so we don't make things more complicated. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why are you doing the levels now? I just kind of do it this way so I can kind of get a feel for how I want the kit to sound ahead of time and get the levels pretty ideal before I send them to a bus, which we'll cover in a bit. We're going to pull up Telos. Now, we do not need to silence anything with hi-hats and cymbals. We just need them to sound good. And I do have some presets saved for the overheads, but I don't think I have anything for the hi-hats, so we're just going to mess with them. And I am going to solo them so we can get some of that excess out. sounded pretty good. Again, we're not trying to do anything crazy. We've just got a sound that's working, and that's doing the trick. Let's go ahead and start messing with our overheads, and we'll do those together. Essentially, I'm going to do one side, then copy and paste everything to the other. But we're going to pretty close to hard pan those. About 52 you'll see there. I'm not fully in there, but we want them to have the depth they need. All right. So I'm going to start by doing the one side, and then we'll apply these things. So we don't necessarily need silencer, of course, but we do want to mess with Telos and set it on the cymbal setting. And I don't have an overhead thing, so we're just going to start messing with it. Right now we're cutting out some of the low ends, so we're not getting too much of the drum in there. So that's sounding pretty good to me. It's crisp. It's got a nice high-end thing going. I'm going to pull up my mixer here. If you're someone who uses Logic, if you press Option and Command at the same time, you can drag something over with the same setting to another thing. I'm going to go ahead and unsolo these, and we'll start adjusting the levels. Sounding pretty good. Let's go ahead and start messing with our rooms. And same process here. We're going to do one at a time with the rooms, and we'll go into Telos. I'm not using a lot, just pretty stoked and really blown away with this wonderful plugin here. And I do have a room saver that is set up, so we'll make some adjustments to it. With this, you can see that I hit the slam option, which kind of drives the compressor even harder. I like to do that with the overheads. I just kind of want them to have, you know, more presence and things. So let's hear that. I like that it's a little distorted sounding, and it sounds a little dirty and messed up. I think in the context of the mix, it's going to really do a nice job of just creating a vibe. So we're going to transfer that over to the other one there. Same setting. I'm going to unmute these, and I'm going to click them both, take them both down, and we're going to start blending them in. We're going to mess with this kick sample a little bit because it's not quite popping through the way I'd like. So we're going to go into SSL. I've got a quick kick solution here. sounding much better now. So that's our overheads, and this is kind of our general mix. Now there's more stuff we're going to do here in a moment, and I'm excited to get into that. But so far we haven't done a ton as far as plugins, no more than 3 on any particular channel. And yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna do a little bit of finesse here with this snare as well, just to see what we can get out of it. Don't mind me, I do have a few notes here. I can't do everything from memory, so I have some notes. Either way, when we're messing with snare, I tend to like to just bring out a little bit of characteristics and stuff. So the previous bit, we added a bit of brightness, I guess you would call it, a bit of body and brightness at the same time. So we're going to do something similar to the sample, but we're not going to go as crazy because the sample already sounds good. I picked the wrong version of the plugin. It's supposed to just be mono. I picked dual mono. Laugh at me, make fun of me, whatever you want. I don't blame you. All right, so we add some body, add a little bit of pop. We took out some of it too, but really what I'm doing here is just kind of messing with 8K. 8K is kind of a sweet spot for snare. It's where that poppy thing comes in. Same thing here when you're dealing with the low end on a snare. 200 is really kind of where it shines. It just gives the body without really making it sound like a tom or something. So we've got that. Let's hear it in the context of just the general mix. Off to a great start. Now we're going to move over into our bus section and really start bringing this thing to life. And we are back to get into the buses and wrap this jam up. So as you can see here on the screen, we've got a handful of buses happening here. These are the shells. So this is our kick, our snare, and our toms. I've got them ran over into an attack bus, which we're going to get into here in a moment. And I have everything else, as you see here, ran into the drum bus. I do have the snare ran into an additional layer of snare bussery, but I actually think I'm going to get rid of that because it doesn't really make much sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and send everything over to bus number 3 for the drum bus. We're going to go ahead and get rid of the snare bus altogether in this instance because I'm just doing something quick and dirty, and you're not looking for complex, right? Me neither. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So we've got everything ran over to our drum bus, and let's hear that as it stands. That's our current drum mix prior to bussing. We are going to add in this lovely NLS channel. It's just going to give a nice layer of that Neve saturation, and that's what we're after here. So without and with, just a little more punch, a little more bite. Just got a thing. It's nothing magical. If you don't have this plugin, you can use anything that does saturation, or just don't. It's fine, but that's something I use just for taste. And then we're going to go into the drum bus from the fine folks of Black Salt Audio. I'm going to clear this out because I'm not sure what I had going on there for the last time I was tinkering with these. Prior to making the video, I kind of did some quick stuff just to see what it was going to sound like, because I cheat. That's right, I cheat when I'm trying to make videos. Got to make it a little easier on myself, so it seems like I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Whatever. here we go. Let's start bringing in our bus compression. I tend to keep things between 0 and 4 when I'm doing drum bus compression for that glue effect. You don't want to go too hard. That's what the attack bus is for, and we'll get into that momentarily. If I haven't mentioned it before, anytime you see heat or salt on these plugins, which I don't believe I've actually said anything about at this point, similar to what was in the Telos, which I'll just bring up for reference here. This comp and drive thing here, they kind of add saturation as well, and the clipping, it's a similar vibe here. We are adding some saturation, so saturation is heat. Salt is a little bit of top end boost as well. So let's go ahead and start adding in the heat. Around 40 something is where it sounds best to me. That being said, let's hear it at full blast so you can hear the difference. And you should hear, as I start to back it off, the clarity and the attack start to become a little more present. When it's at full blast, it just kind of becomes a distorted mess with the single hits of the snare, and it just messes up the whole compression thing. So we've got that going for us. That sounds pretty solid. And that's that. Getting into a little bit more with our master bus, I'm going to use Smooth Operator, which is similar to Soothe, if you've ever seen that plugin. It basically just takes anything that's gnarly and kind of cuts out the harsh portions of things. So I'm going to find a preset in here that's for drums or something to just kind of clean up that. So drum mud out. Let's do that. Let's hear what we got. Using something like this, you'll notice that when you apply it, it automatically boosts the volume quite a bit. I go ahead and try to volume match it, so that when it's on, it doesn't sound louder, perceivably louder. However, it does start to clean up some of that grossness. So let's have a look. As you can see over here, it's just kind of taking out anything that's harsh or too abrasive for the overall mix. And that's that. Let's go ahead and get into our attack bus. Now for the attack bus, we're going to run that kind of in parallel here, and we're going to use some sins. So you'll see that I've got Sin 4 set up here, and Sin 4 is pretty much set to 0 with the exception of on the snare. I've got it turned back just a tiny bit so it's not hitting it as hard. So we're going to go ahead and turn all of these on, and we're going to go to our drum bus here, and I'm going to just wipe this out. Again, I cheat and try things before I make videos, so I got my stuff together. We're going to start creating ourselves a nice attack bus or a crush bus or whatever you want to call it. This is just taking all of the drum shells themselves and really compressing the hell out of them so we can blend them in later. So let's get to it. So let's get to it. So as you can see here, I'm cutting out some low end. I don't want it to be too subby. We're going to blend this in. We just kind of want it to emphasize the drums a bit and add some heft to them. I'm going to add a little bit of tone to it to add some tightness and some top end. And let's go ahead and hear our main drum bus, and we're going to start blending in this jam. That's with, that's without, and with. So, sounding pretty good. And lastly, we're just going to add a little bit of reverb to our snare. So let's hear that in the context of things. So I don't think that reverb sounds exactly what we need, so let's find something else. Large, bright room. Large chamber. Let's try room for snare. All right. And so it's not perfect, but for, you know, just being a short little period of time to get a nice drum mix going, something that we can send out to the rest of your bandmates perhaps to continue tracking, or something that's just clean and ready to go, not too bad. You don't need a ton of plugins these days to really get drums to sound great. If you really look at here, what we're doing, maybe there's 5 plugins being used in this instance. Could it be better? Sure, but just a quick and dirty thing. We're only spending about 15 minutes on this. So yeah, if we had more time, we could really dial it in and make it great, but it wouldn't make much sense to do that because we want it to be great in the context of a mix and not just on its own. But the idea here is to have something that's good enough or great enough for you to be able to track the rest of the instruments to confidently. So I think we were able to achieve that. Either way, that's this. I'm going to go over all the mics and stuff one last time just so we get it out of the way. Affiliate links will be in the description if you're interested. Kick, we have the Lewitt REX 640. As I mentioned, it's got both a dynamic and a condenser capsule in it with 2 independent outputs. Kick sample, well, that's a kick sample. I believe it came from the Gojira kit from Mixwave. The standard snare is a 57 on the top. The snare sample, also Gojira and Mixwave. Floor toms and rack toms are the Sennheiser 421, the new one, the mini one that is small and works really well for mounting on toms. For the hi-hats, we used an Odyx i5. For the overheads, we used an SE8 set as a matched pair of condensers, pencil style condensers. For the room mics, we are using the VR1 from SE. It is a lovely ribbon mic and it just sounds amazing. On the kick in, we used the Warm Audio microphone pre that is the 73 with the EQ. On the EQ, we added a little bit of low end and we took out some of that pesky mid-ranges that causes the basketball sound. On the snare, we used a Golden Age Pre-73 Junior, and that was just to give us some headroom to really get a nice, clean, boosted sound out of that snare. It's a fantastic pre, really cost-effective. Affiliate links, again, in the description. There'll be links below to all the Black Salt audio stuff. Again, I'm not a partner of theirs. It's just not sponsored. I just like their products. It makes things like this a real blast. And if you're someone who is using unaffected samples from, say, Superior Drummer or GGD, you can use this plugin on those too and really bring those to life in almost no time whatsoever. It's a great set of plugins to mess with, and can't say enough good things about them. Again, I'm just really happy with it to be able to do just a few things and really get a good result out of it. It's pretty impressive. This is quick and dirty. It's not meant to be perfect. I'm sure I'm a bit sloppy through this whole thing. I'm sure you have mixed critiques. The point isn't for it to be perfect. It's just to be able to be good enough to track to with very little effort to get a great drum sound going. This is also a good thing if you're someone who's tracking a band and you've got your drums going and you're tracking, instrumentation, and you just want something that's going to make things sound a little fuller and closer to the end product. So that's this video. It's been me, Steve, here with Gear Stuff and Things. It's been you inside of this DJI Osmo Cam Action 4. I don't look. You're inside of a camera on the other side of glass, and then further into a world of glass that separates us, and you're looking at me either on a cell phone or a computer screen, and you're judging, and that's okay. If I could look at you, I'd probably do this. See you soon. Gear Stuff and Things. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Bye.